I was just reading in my bed when I thought, what if books went to the Grammys?
And the Grammys go to A Court of Thrones and Roses!
Because I knew I needed this to happen, I went to my bookshelf and decided which BookTok books deserved to go to the Grammys. The criteria for the nominations only required 3 things. They needed to be a 5-star book, they needed to fit a certain niche, aka award, and they had to be a BookTok book. With the criteria filled out, we were given 16 nominations. Hello! These are this year's nominees, the cream of the crop, if you will. Let me know in the comments if you can guess which books I'm nominating before I say them. For our first award, we're going to do the one that is the most underrated. This book does not get the hype that it should. It takes place in a fantasy kingdom. We get magical powers, a badass MC, a love triangle. That is a little controversial, I'll give you that. We get tension, fighting, dagger to the neck scenes. I don't understand why BookTok has ignored this book. The kingdom is broken up into the higher class from the lower class based off their blood, but our main character is a little bit outside of the norm. If you couldn't guess by now, it is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyards. This book is so good, I totally recommend, and it most definitely deserves the most underrated book award. Our next award is the Epic Fantasy Award. Now believe me when I tell you there are so many books that could have made this spot. This one was just my favorite out of all of them. This book was just the most incredibly good for a debut author. She's not a debut author anymore now. By now she has 3 big series such as ACOTAR, Essence City, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. We get another badass MC, we get fae, we get tension, we get competitions. It's just such a good book and an overall really good read. The writing is incredible. If you couldn't guess by now, it is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This book is so good and it is one of the books that got me into reading. If you're really into action-packed fantasy books that also have romance and tension, I totally recommend this book. This book definitely deserves the Epic Fantasy Award. Our next award is the Best Book Boyfriend. I know that there are so many books that could fill this category because women writers, they know how to write men. But this book, the relationship and the dynamic is just everything I want in a romantasy. This book isn't specifically just a romantasy. We get a badass MC, we get drama, we get fantasy, action-packed. This is definitely one of the more developed fantasy worlds that I have read, and I enjoy that so much in a book when I get not just all the romance and spicy, but also a well-developed world. There are twins, fae, a mean prince, and a war going on. If you couldn't guess by now, it is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This book is so good. I totally recommend it for all my younger readers who are getting into spicier books or more romantasy genre. If that is you, I would totally pick up this book because Carden is definitely worth reading for. Our next category is the Best Dystopian Novel. I know dystopian novels are so early 2000s, you were 12 years old. I always loved those type of books because you can hook me on any apocalyptic world. Those things just drive my fantasies. I love the styles of those books and the way they just keep you on your toes. Our main character cannot touch anybody without risking killing them, so it's definitely creating a lot of tension between her and other characters and other people. My favorite friendship in a novel takes place in this book because our MC and her boy best friend are so close. They're not romantically involved, but their friendship is just to die for. I love their dynamic. If you couldn't guess by now, it is Shatter Me. This book is so good, and if you couldn't guess the friendship I'm talking about Kenji and Juliet. Aaron and Juliet are a close second in relationships, but Kenji, oh my god, he is my best friend, and he's a fictional character in a book, so that doesn't say something. Our next award is for the Best Historical Fiction. I'm not the biggest historical fiction reader. This isn't necessarily based on a true story either. It just takes place in a more historical time. I say historical time, but I mean like the 1900s. It's about an actress. We watch as she goes through her many relationships with both men and women. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. This is one of my favorite authors. I love anything she writes. It just hooks me from the start. So addicting. I love her stories. I love this book, and I hope you agree with me when I say the winner is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This book is just so good. The writing is incredible. I could read this a million times and never get tired of it. So I totally recommend it if you're trying to get into the historical fiction or even classics. I feel like this is a good way to transition over into liking classic books because her style of writing is very much more intricate. Our next award is the Best Film Adaptation. It is a well-known fact that when books are made into movies or TV shows, they aren't necessarily the best at times, but I feel like this show ended up being a really good representation of the book. This book was also written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who is one of my favorite authors. I just adore her books. This one in particular is about a band, and it talks about the relationships and dynamics between the people in the band and the people outside of the band and what happened after they broke up. The book we're nominating is Daisy Jones and the Six. This show is so good, so if you have read the book, I totally recommend checking it out. I believe it is on Prime. Our next nomination is the most tear-wrenching book. I'm a little bit late on this book. It came out a while ago and it was very popular on BookTok for a long time, and then I finally decided to read it this year. And let me say, these characters hold such a place in my heart. I'm not even look at another book after reading this. There's a thing called the death cast, and they call you to tell you this is your last day for whatever reason. If you get a phone call from them, it is most likely because either you are going to die or someone you know has died. One of the two. It's all very sad, and these two I can't even speak about it right now. If you couldn't guess by now, they both die at the end. This book is so sad. It was such an easy read though. I had no trouble getting through. I think I finished it in like a day. So if you're in a reading slump, check this out, but it might put you into another reading slump. Our next book that we're nominating is the Best Mystery Novel. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call this mystery or anything. I just wanted to have a nomination for it so I could talk about it again. It's really good. This is definitely more for the younger readers who are starting out into fantasy, and I say fantasy, but I mean fiction. It kind of has a Knives Out type of style where our main character is suddenly inheriting a ton of money from a person that she didn't even necessarily know. I was reading this book and they started connecting the dots together. My mind was just blown. There's a love triangle if you're interested in that type of stuff. Me personally, it causes me so much anxiety when there's 3 people involved because I'm like, what the hell? Just pick the right one. But anyways, couldn't guess by now, it is the Inheritance Games. I totally recommend it. It was such an easy read too. It's kind of like a Hallmark movie. This is another book where if you're in a reading slump, totally check this out because you won't be anymore. Our next category is the Best Contemporary Romance. I'm not the best person to talk to when it comes to those type of books. I normally lean towards romantasy, fantasy, fiction and mystery, that type of stuff. I never necessarily go for the contemporary stuff, which is why I tend to DNF those types of books. I'm trying to get into them more. I just got the Spanish Deception and the Love Hypothesis, which I intend to read and give you my thoughts on. For this year, this is one book I did not DNF. It was actually really incredible, well written. I finished it in like 2 seconds. I have Prime Reading on my Kindle, so you have to kind of do tradesies whenever you want to read like a Prime Reading book. And I haven't gotten any more Prime Reading books because I know I'm going to want to read this again and again and again. It's just kind of become a comfort book, so I never thought a contemporary romance book would be my comfort book, but look at me now. I don't know if you could guess from what I'm saying because I'm not even talking about the book, but it is The Upside of Falling. I read it on my Kindle. It was so good. It was so incredibly well written. The story was fascinating. I say fascinating. This is another kind of Hallmarky book where you just kind of coast through it. It's easy to read. It's fun to read. I definitely recommend. It's getting me into contemporary romances, so we'll see if I like the other books that I've gotten. Our next nomination is the Best Pirate Book. I kind of love pirate books because I love that Pirates of the Caribbean vibe. Danger, treasure, fighting. Tension. There were a few books that fit this category, and there was one runner-up, and I do want to talk about it. It's Daughter of the Pirate King. Unfortunately, this did not get the nomination for it, but it is so good. This was a 5-star read, and I did love it a lot. I just liked the other book more because it had more magical elements, and I liked the characters a little bit more. This character, don't get me wrong, she's badass. I mean, this is a 5-star read. This is a 5-star read. But my other book is like a 6-star read, and it isn't talked about enough, so I feel like I want to give it the spotlight, but I did want to mention Daughter of the Pirate King before I move on. The book I am talking about, however, is All the Stars and Teeth. This book was so good, so well written. This main character is so relatable, and she's so funny, and I love the way this book is written. This book is kind of the book that got me into writing, because I was reading this and I was like, wow, these details they're so intricate. I love the way she describes this ocean and the sea. I love the book boyfriend in here. This is also a runner-up for the best book boyfriend because he's kind of fine AF. So I definitely recommend this book. I think everyone should read it. I cannot believe that no one talks about this book. It is just so good. Our next award is the Best Old Booktok. And I realize right now that I'm thinking about it, I just talked a lot about the Old Booktok books. Because don't get me wrong, I love spicy things, but I'm not really into the like lusty type stuff. So I guess that's why I gravitate towards the older Booktok. But this one is another kind of underrated Old Booktok. I think I saw it in a couple videos, but not a ton. And I think it should be talked about more because it has all the things we love, like dagger, like the tension, like the drama, the book boyfriend. He's insane. We love him. This takes place in a fantasy kingdom that is also so well written and so well developed. There's magical elements. It's not really magical, it's more like fighting and daggers and war, kings and queens and princes. It's so good. So definitely deserves the Old Booktok Award. And it is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I believe she also wrote, yes, The Kiss of Deception. I want to read it now after reading this duology because this book was so good. It was so well written. It bamboozles me that not more people talk about this book because it is so good. So please read it. Please read it. If you don't read anything else that I just recommend right now, read this book. It is so good. The romance is a little bit rushed. I should say that. The romance is a bit rushed, but then it is unrushed. You feel me? It's unrushed. So check it out, please. The last award is the New Booktok Award. This book has dragons, a killer MC, a killer book boyfriend. It is a little bit spicy, but I feel like it kind of works in this book. It's well written, it has a good fantasy world, and it definitely feels like it's going to be the new ACOTAR. It's so good. If you couldn't guess, it is Fourth Wing. This book was so good, and it's so worth the hype. I think out of all the ones that are super hyped up, this one definitely meets the hype. It's definitely in my genre of preference. I think everyone should definitely check out Fourth Wing. Now let me know if you agree or disagree with my Grammy Booktok Awards. If you do, make sure to like and subscribe. If you don't, make sure to comment which books you think should have won or other nominations you would have recommended. See you in the next video.